This is, hands down, the best part.
Today I'm going to be looking at this shelf. So I filled in some of this yesterday with some plaster repair. And I'm going to cover it over today with some cork. I mainly did that because I wanted to fill the big gaps so they weren't left too open. But obviously I need to fill that in with cork and then I'm going to have to redecorate. And here I filled in a gap here too. So just got my sanding pad out. I'm just going to sand some of that down so it's flat. Now I'm going to repaint it. Oh, I've got a parcel. Let me get on the sides as well. I quite like these sanding pads. They're really handy for stuff like this. I also need to resand this because I made it wet yesterday. I washed it over after getting some of this material on it. It has raised the grain, which is basically where little teeny tiny bits of wood rise up after you make it wet. So I'll need to resand that so it's flat, which isn't going to take very long at all. This might be a mistake, but I'm going to take this window out of this window frame. It looks like there's some screws that I can unscrew it. I've never dismantled a window like this before. In fact, I've never dismantled a window ever. I want to be able to clean around the frame, but I can't get to it because the corners are just too small and fiddly. So I figure if I take it off, I can have a better chance at actually cleaning the window properly. Let's see how it turns out. Unscrewing it, maybe that's actually just changing the, maybe it's an adjustment rather than.
Yeah, turns out I don't think you can take the window off. Nice to try though.
I can't get all of this muck off of these two areas. So I'm going to use some peel away, which removes paint. And I'm going to add that to this area because I think that will help me get some of this paint off. Look at it. It looks so untidy.
This was when I realised that I had dropped some of this product on my newly installed windowsill, and it marked it immediately. So it's going to take even more sanding when I get to that part.
Use this old dabbing brush. Use my cling film to not let it dry out. It needs enough time to work, and if you let it dry out, it's not going to work. So you have to keep it moist with a bit of cling film.
As I mentioned, I ended up having to do a fairly big sand here so I could get rid of the marks from the product that I dropped on there. I don't think I caught it on camera, but it came out like a dark black mark, so it was really obvious. And of course, the longer it stays on the worktop, the further it seeps in. So I got to doing this job pretty quickly. I started out with, I think it was 100 grit or 120. It did take a bit of time to get those marks off. But then I just moved up from 120 to 240, 320, and then on to 400, and I eventually finished this with 600. And then I blew all of the sawdust in my face by opening the window. I brushed off any excess sawdust, and this is my favourite part of doing any sort of project like this, when you get to add the oil. Now this is just boiled linseed oil. I like using this because I find it very inexpensive, and it seems to work on a wide variety of different types of projects, including stuff that you do in the garden. I might use this on my garden furniture. And I feel that it doesn't come out too sticky. Like once it's seeped into the wood, I don't feel like it leaves a unpleasant sticky residue. It is worth mentioning that this is one of those products that has an ability to self-combust. I don't know if self-ignite. Is that the right word? I can't remember. Anyway, once you've taken this cloth and you have whooshed it around on a piece of wood like this, it builds up, I think this is true, I might be making this up, it builds up a certain amount of heat or static or something like that. And so there's this potential for that bit of cloth, if it's like in a ball or something left somewhere next to a piece of wood, that it could self-ignite, which blows my mind. So once I'm done with a cloth like this, I usually just throw it in the garden, give it a chance to calm down. Give yourself time to think about what it's done. Once I'd given that boiled linseed oil enough time to seep into the wood, it was time for me to seal these edges with some sealant. Oh, that was untidy. It was finally time for me to take off this cling film and see if the peel away had removed all of this awkward paint stuck in these corners. Now, what I hadn't considered is that it's actually quite difficult to get up in there and remove the product, and I didn't want any of it going back onto my windowsill. So I covered it up with some of this cling film for protection and scooped it out with this little scoop, and then went in with a cloth in the hope of removing a lot of the rest of the product. There was still so much paint left on there. I got out my Dremel to see if I could try and get in there with a finer tool and take off some of the additional paint. I'm going to show you how it went with this blob of blue paint up the top. Perfect. It did come off. It did take off a fair bit more of the paint than I had previously been able to get off. There is still some left there, but I guess I'll have to move to plan Z or something for that. I had another go at trying to apply some sealant a little bit tidier than before. I must admit, this is just one of those things that I'm not very good at. Maybe I'll learn better with time, but yeah, I find it tough.
Really pleased with my progress on this windowsill. I went and I added some finishing bead along here. This actually took me ages to do because I'm not a natural at it. I always make a huge mess and then I have to go back over and try and wipe it off the windowsill. So I've managed to make it as straight as I possibly can and look fairly tidy. So this is that corner that I've been trying to clean all the gloop off of. It's really hard to get in there. Did manage to get some off of that one, but it's still a bit of a work in progress. So now that these edges are done, I just need to go and add a couple of layers of paint to here. I've already added one, as you can see, but I need to add a couple more so that it blends in. So that's what I'm going to be doing right now. The colour is the same as the wall. Oh, dang. Luckily, this has been double oiled, so this should actually come off quite easy. That's a relief.
One last job that I did, which might seem a little bit over the top, is I went and I painted these little command hooks. They are white when they stick to the wall, and I didn't want them to be seen. They really stood out quite a lot before I painted them, and now they blend in. This windowsill is now done, and I'm so delighted with it. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to this channel.